Hi cottagers, welcome back to my channel. I am Maddie Sanderson and it has been way too long, it feels like, for me. It might not feel like that to you, but it's just been a whirlwind of a June already. We're halfway through it, actually over halfway through it, and I don't even know what's happened, really. I have missed you guys so much. It feels like I haven't really been able to make any videos in the last couple of weeks, and it's because I haven't. The first week of June, we went to a family camp with our church, which was amazing, but it took up all of our time while we were there. When we came home, it was my grandma's 86th or 87th birthday, and so we had all her kids and all their kids, and then all their kids. We were all together, and so it was a wonderful weekend, but it definitely took up even more time. And then the very next day, Cody, myself, and Piper all ended up very sick. So you can probably hear I sound a little weird. It is because I still have a lot of drainage going on, but I feel fine. I just think that that's probably going to be a bit of a lasting side effect. So that has played into my reading for this month, but that's not what you're here for. You're here for last month's reading, because I am just now getting around to finally feeling up to actually creating a video, editing the video, and all that jazz. So for today, I'm going to be showing you guys all the books that I read in the month of May. Month of May was a bit chaotic, just as much as June is turning out to be. We had different little trips that we were going on. We also were working a lot on our previous house and getting it under contract and working on the boat, and then a big surprise that we will be presenting to you guys later this month, if not at the beginning of next month, which we're very excited for, but that has also been taking some time from us. But then also we were hosting, my husband helped, but for the most part it was me hosting our very first readathon, which is Mystery and Mayhem Readathon. You can find some information about that down below, but you can also find a couple of videos that I did throughout the last couple of months leading up to it that kind of give you some information about it. But we are sadly through with it, but we do have some big plans for next year that I think that you guys would really appreciate if you were already participating in this one this year. It was a wild ride with y'all, and I was not able to get as much reading done as I thought that I would, and I definitely didn't get hardly any Mystery and Mayhem books read for that week, but that's okay. I still ended up reading 17 books last month, so I did a lot better than I thought that I would have. But it did help that there were several of these books that I did specifically do audiobooks for, and I will show you guys. But then also I'm going to be missing some books because as soon as I read them, I knew that my best friend Donna needed to read them, so I sent them over her way, so I don't have those physical copies. Without dragging this intro out even longer, let's go ahead and get into the books that I read in the month of May. The first book that I read was The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This book was a wild ride that I absolutely loved. I didn't really care for the fact that at the very beginning there's quite a bit of cursing, and to me it's all like, it's just a personal preference, and that is totally okay. And I know some of you guys couldn't care less that there's cursing in there. I just always try to make that as a disclaimer if possible. But I did push through this book because it did become less and less, but then also the story just became even better. It is following a girl whose mom disappeared when I think it was 2 years old. It's been a hot minute, obviously, over a month since I've read this book, so I don't fully remember, but I think she was like 2 years old, somewhere around those lines, maybe a little bit older, but she wasn't very old to where she could remember her mom very well. And so what was weird was that her and her mom ended up disappearing together from a shopping mall, and then just a little while later that day the daughter's found, but the mom's still missing, and she was found in her mom's car. Weird, but like the car was still running and all this weird stuff. I don't know. So this is the synopsis of the story, but what's really fun is that you actually open with the girl on an interview. This is many years later, they decided, hey, there's a story here that has to do with like a crazy disappearance. Let's learn more about this, and let's talk to the daughter and the family and kind of get their take on all this stuff. And so they're doing like a documentary about it, and it kind of goes crazy. And then after a while of understanding deeper and deeper of what happened to the mom and kind of what happened to the daughter, because we never fully knew where the mom was or anything like that, then all of a sudden her mom shows back up, and it's just kind of crazy and chaotic. And then of course you're following this girl who missed her mom and loved her mom, but also it's like, but I don't know this lady. Like, she doesn't know her. She hadn't been with her her whole life, and who knows how she is now or who she is now, and like, how were you gone for this many years, but you know, who are you? Anyways, I am not going to go into detail about this book because there are way too many twists and turns that were phenomenal. I loved this book so very much. It kept me guessing. I could not figure it out. I kept thinking I had it, and then I realized I had no idea. And by the end of it, I legit had no idea. There were a couple of things that I understood were probably going to happen, but I liked that, and it was fine. But the overarching plot twists, I had no idea it was coming. It was a really good book. I ended up giving that one 5 mushrooms. If you know anything about me, you know that I usually try to rate all of my books based off of mushrooms because we are cottagecore here. So that one was 5 mushrooms, and I absolutely loved it. I definitely recommend it. The next book that I read is actually not a book, it's a graphic novel. I read my very first graphic novel, which is Wait Till Helen Comes. This one is by Mary Downing Hahn. And I have heard of this book for a very, very long time. And I'm pretty sure I actually read it a really long time ago, but I just don't remember it. And so I read this graphic novel, obviously did it in one night. It's very, very short. Pictures are super cute, very vibrant. It was a really good time. It gave me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies as I was reading it, but I really did enjoy it. It is about a family who moves into a house, and there is a ghost's presence, something that is not within the house but is within the cemetery that is close to the house. And so kind of the craziness that ensues with having a ghost that is a part of your land. So I definitely recommend it if you like ghost stories, especially middle grade ghost stories. This is perfect book for you, and I'm pretty sure that they actually have this in a regular story format if that is something that you prefer. But it was fun to actually have the graphic novel of it. I gave this one, I believe it was like a 3.5 star, just because it seemed like once we got to the plot twist after that, it just was, let's just wrap this thing up. And so they did, and so there were still questions that weren't answered, but it's middle grade, so I didn't expect a ton from that. And then the next book that I read is one of my absolute favorite books that I have ever read. And so I thought that I had read this before May, but I guess I didn't. So the next book is The Ghosts of Tupleo Landing. This is by Sheila Turnage. And this book, if you have been here for any length of time, you know is one of my absolute favorites. I loved this book. I have an entire books and baking video that is dedicated specifically to this book, so I will link that in the card up above so you can go and watch that. I have mentioned this in so many different videos of how I absolutely love this book. I am not going to go into detail about this because I do have other videos that mention it so many times, but just know this is a wonderful book. It is middle grade and you will absolutely love it. Every person who I have convinced to read this book have told me how much they absolutely love this book. So 5 stars, read it. After that book, I ended up getting an audiobook of The Library of Borrowed Hearts by Lucy Gilmore. This one took me for a trip. I did talk about this one in another video. I think it was one of my vlog videos, and I just go on a rant about how much I love this book. I still keep thinking about it, and every time I see it in a paperback or hardcover version anywhere I'm at, like a bookstore or whatnot, I keep wanting to buy it, but I'm not supposed to be buying books, so I haven't. But I loved this book. It was definitely not like my usual desire when it comes to books. I'm not really a romance person. Sometimes I get in the mood for it, sometimes I don't, but this wasn't so much a heavy-handed romance. There was mystery involved, there was different points of views, there was different timelines, and it all encompassed books in a library, and that was exactly what my little heart needed at the time. It was perfect. It was a book about books, and that is something that I absolutely adore in a book. And Lucy Gilmore nailed this book when it came to explaining our love of books and how our love of books can be more than just, yeah, it was a fun time, but it's like, no, it can be life-changing, it can be life-altering sometimes, and that is exactly what she talks about in this book. But again, I'm not going to go into any more detail about this because I absolutely could if you gave me the opportunity to. I really liked this one. I have an entire vlog on it, so go watch that. But know that I did definitely give this one 5 mushrooms, and I couldn't recommend it more. If you love romance, if you love books about books, this is it. Hi, Fifi. Yes, you just need to be a part of this. Oh, and Jubilee has to come and get some lovin's too. Okay, guys, go. Go. Jubilee. Y'all ruin a good thing. After that, I read Lightlark by Alex Astor. I read this for my friend, the Spark of Sam, and she has a book club with her friend April, and so I joined for this month. That way I could read this book because I had been dying to read it, and I finally did. I have this also in the same vlog as A Library of Borrowed Hearts, so there is more information given on this book in that vlog, so I highly recommend watching that if you want to know my thoughts on this. But just know I did give this 4 mushrooms. It was a good time. It was a great read, and I'm very excited to finally read Nightbane too. After that, I had to continue my favorite series, The Lunar Chronicles, and I read Scarlet. This book by Marissa Meyer, by the way, it was so phenomenal. It is also in the same vlog that I just talked about, and so you can get my thoughts on this. But then also, I did this one and its first book in one of my books and baking videos. So go watch that, and it explains more about this book for you as well. But just know this entire series so far has been 5 mushrooms across the board. It is a wonderful series. If you've never read the Lunar Chronicles, but you like something that is adventurous but is also whimsical, but takes you, it's kind of nostalgic because it takes us back to the stories that we grew up on and then rewrites them, but then makes it like future, not even modern, but like future times. It is phenomenal. I love this book series, and I guarantee that you will as well. And then after those, Cody convinced me to read The Locked Room by McFeeda Fradden. No, The Locked Room by Frida McFadden. That one, I felt like I didn't enjoy it as much as Cody did. This is also something that I talk about in my vlog that covered all 4 of those, the 3 previous books in this book in 1 week. And I liked it, but I didn't love it, mainly because I have read some of her other books and I appreciated them more, whereas Cody had not. This was his first step into the McFadden world, and so he was blown away, couldn't believe these plot twists and things like that. But I had already read some of the other ones, and so while I really liked this one and I did enjoy it, I kind of saw some things coming that I probably wouldn't have had this been my first book of hers. But still recommend it. It is a light, quick, easy read, as all of her books usually are. So you might like it. Who knows? Who knows? This is also a great starting book for Frida McFadden if you've never gotten into her stuff. The next book I gave to my best friend after I finished reading it because her dog is also named after one of the characters, so I thought that she would probably appreciate that. The next book is called Echo North. This book was an interesting read, to say the least. I enjoyed it and didn't enjoy it, and loved it and then was questioning it, and it just took me on a lot of different, a roller coaster ride, really, is what happened. But in the end, I only gave this one about a 3.5 mushroom, I want to say, because it was good, but it was one that I know that after a while I will forget about, or I'll look back on and think, what actually happened in that book? Because even reading it, I still wasn't 100% sure what happened in the book, to be really honest. But it still was a good book. I do talk about this in a vlog, so I'm not going to go into great detail about this one either, but just know it's a good book if you want to read it, but you may not remember it down the road. You may end up loving this book more than I did. I'm not sure. I'm excited for my friend to read it so I can see what she thinks about it, because maybe it was just me, maybe it was just the time I read it, I don't know. But it was just an okay book for me. And then I needed to continue on the Road of Caraval. So we went to Legendary. This book was not my favorite of the Caravals, but I also have not finished the entire series yet, so I can't say that yet. The next one might disappoint me more than this one did, but I'm happy that I read it. It definitely did carry on the story, which was just fine. I do still think that Caraval could have been its own standalone story and just made it bigger, and it would have been a wonderful, wonderful book, and it still would have placed so heavily and so high on some people's reading lists. But I still think Stephanie Garber did a wonderful job with this book. I don't love triangles, and that's kind of what was happening in this one, and blah blah blah. But I have a whole vlog written or dedicated to this book and a couple of the other ones, so again, not going to go into great detail because I don't want this to be forever long. Sorry, my camera died, so now I'm back. I don't know if this setup, it looks really different, or the lighting or anything, so sorry if it does, but we're gonna move right on, and we're going to talk about the next book, which was The Book Thief. This book, wonderful. It got 5 mushrooms, but if I could give it more, I would give it 10 mushrooms, 12 mushrooms, 20 mushrooms, however many I possibly could, because this book was amazing. It is a part of a readathon, or a part of a reading vlog that I've already done, and I talk way more about this. You actually see some real life interaction of me reading this book and my emotions that are happening, because this book had me feeling so many different emotions, but in the best, absolute best way possible. I love this book. I think about it almost every single day since I've read it, and I am very excited to get into his other books and to see if they do the same thing. But if not, it doesn't matter, because this is a book that I will cling to and that I will be reading multiple times for the rest of my life, and I think that this should be one that is at the very, very top of your TBR, because it's unlike anything I've read before. I loved this book. This book was a wild ride, just like always. I am sorry that every single time I have to start talking about a book, my dogs decide that that's the time that they need to move or wander. So sorry. Living on a boat with 2 massive dogs is not always for the faint of heart. So this book was one that left me laughing. I was intrigued from the very beginning, as I always am. Benjamin Stevenson is such a fantastic writer, and I know not everybody agrees with that, and that's totally fine. You can have your own opinions, but my opinion is that I absolutely love his writing, and it is just it's a fun time. This is a part of another one of the vlogs that I've done, so I'm not going to go into super great detail about this, but I did actually like this one more than I liked the first book, which I didn't think that I would. I always figure the first book is going to be the best, and then after that everything's going to be very close, but probably never, reach that height of amazingness, but this one did. And I think it's because I really liked the way that the killer came about in this book compared to the last one. So since I had read a mystery and I was very much in that mood, we were building up the excitement and the anticipation for the Mystery Mayhem Readathon, so I was very much looking forward to some mystery books. So Cody had convinced me to go ahead and give the book The Chestnut Man a try. I am not even going to try and say his name because I don't know it, but this book, I was shocked by this book. Okay, so Cody had listened to this on audiobook and he absolutely loved it, and so then I thought, okay, well, I really want to read it, but this is one that I really feel like I started reading or started listening to as audiobook, but I knew I needed a physical copy because this is technically a translation, and the way that they refer to people over in, I think this was like Denmark, maybe Dutch, I can't remember exactly where it was at, but it was not from here. Yeah, Denmark. So the way that they refer to people is not the way that Americans refer to people in books at all. And so it got very confusing for me until I was able to physically read this book. Now, she is a chunker, and it is a wild, wild, wild book. I'm telling you, I really liked this book, but there were definitely concepts and parts of it that I don't appreciate. I don't like how filthy the language was. There was a lot of language in this one, and I don't like that it felt like anytime we were in the perspective or in like the mind of a man, and these would be different, constantly different men. So I don't know how to explain this without giving stuff away, but you were in different people's perspectives, but it wasn't always like, oh, here's your 3 main characters and you're in those 3 perspectives. No, it would do side characters and stuff like that. That would just give you a bit of a, glimpse into what was going on. While I liked that, I didn't like that it seemed like every single man was absolutely obsessed with sex and females and like being derogatory towards them. So that is a bit disheartening. And then of course it always makes me wonder, like, does the man who wrote this, does he think like that? And that's why he felt so comfortable writing like that? Or is it just truly trying to show the deep depravity of humans, which we all know is a thing? So, I mean, that was a part of it, and so there was never anything that was like open door romances or anything along those lines that I can remember. So clearly it didn't, it wasn't anything. But besides those things, if you can get past those things, this book was so good. I did not see how this was all going to tie together until the very end, when I finally was like, okay, Cody, I'm pretty sure this is who this person is, and I'm pretty sure this is how this is all going to be working or happening. And I was so close to having figured it out, which was amazing. I'm very proud of myself, but I didn't figure it completely out because it's wild. It is wild. I gave this one, I want to say I did like 4 mushrooms for this one, mainly because I just did not appreciate those other parts of it. And then I just wanted to, because that book was so hard to read because there were some very heavy aspects of it and there is a lot of death and a lot of brutality in it, I wanted something that was going to just feel good to read. And so my favorite feel good things are middle grade books. I decided I was going to pick up The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris, and I really enjoyed this book. It follows a group of kids who are, well, mainly one kid in particular who he just doesn't seem to fit in anywhere, and he can't figure out why. And so he ends up at like this random circus like place, but then he gets this older gentleman who bumps into him and like gives him like this foreboding secret of like, you should probably not be here because this won't end well for you. And so then of course he's like, okay, maybe I should listen to that. So then he ends up coming into this group of children, and these group of children all have like these powers, but they're not like magic powers. They are just a way of kind of manipulating people's minds and sights and their thoughts and things like that. So it's not actual magic, but it is like sleight of hands and things along those sorts. So that was really, really cute to see all of them working together with these talents. Seeing them all work together with these fun talents that I would not have really thought of kids having was really fun. But they went against this circus and the crazy man who was actually trying to put the whole thing on, who was very bad about trying to not necessarily kidnap kids or anything, but definitely use them in ways that they shouldn't be used. But that also sounds really inappropriate, but it's not like that. It was just like, I mean, kids just shouldn't be forced into like circus jobs at that age, you know what I mean, that sort of stuff. So it was a very, very cute read, very quick, very fun, and there are lots of different fun graphics in it that really help you understand the story and what was going on, and just seeing what was going on in Neil Patrick Harris's mind whenever he wrote this book. And it is a series, and I have yet to read any of the other books in this series. Then I ended up picking up an audiobook that just looked really cute, and it was free, so I thought, why not? And I had never read anything by Maddie Day before, so I read Flipped for Murder by Maddie Day, and it was just okay. that is Piper playing in the background. She is currently trying to make potions in the bathroom. So anyways, I've never read anything by Maddie Day, and I may not, because I just did not like this book that much. I was sad that I didn't like it so much because the concept was really, really cute. You had a lady who has moved to start taking over this little restaurant that she really wants to make thrive in this small town, but then there are people who are completely against her because she's not from there, and they don't want her, you know, restaurant to cause any sort of damage towards their own restaurant. And then you have people who are just very set in their ways, and they don't want her necessarily to be there because of her past and blah blah blah. And so it was interesting because then like the deaths happen, and the person who dies ends up with one of the main characters' like special biscuits stuck in her mouth or something along those lines. I can't really remember what it was, but there was a food item of hers that they all knew was hers that was stuffed in the victim's mouth. And so it obviously made her look like she was not innocent in the endeavor. So it's her trying to clear her name and understand what is going on while trying to run this brand new restaurant and trying to make connections. And then I start realizing, you know, about 3/4 of the way through, that we are going to end up with a love triangle, which I literally just said, I hate love triangles. I'm not a fan of them. I think that they're a waste of time, and I don't like that sort of writing. So I just didn't like this book. Now I know that there are people who are huge Maddie Day fans, and that is perfect. That is wonderful, because I do think that there is a place for these books. It's just not my place, and it's not on my boat. And as we were in the Mystery and Mayhem readathon, and right in the thick of it, I was being overwhelmed with everything that was going on in like a good way. So don't think anything bad about the readathon. It was wonderful, but being on the back end, I definitely learned so much this year, and it was fantastic. But I just needed, again, something that was going to make me feel very cuddled and hugged and like comforted while I was reading. And so I went ahead, because we happened to find this at the thrift store, and I was like, okay, we're not supposed to be buying books, but we're getting this one because it was at the thrift store for $1.29. We got 3 Times Lucky, which is the first book to our Ghost of Tupleo Landing, and like they go together. It is so pretty, and I love these books so much. I loved this book. So you do not have to read this one before you, or after, hold on. You don't have to read this one before you read this one. It's fine. You can read them out of order. There were a couple of things in here that kind of didn't make perfect sense, but it didn't bother me, and it didn't mess with the story whatsoever. So then when I finally got this one and we read this one, now I understood those couple of little references. But this one was so stinking good. I just love it. I love this series so much. This one actually had to do with a murder, and so you are following Moses and Dale, and Moses is actually a girl who goes by Mo LeBeau, and she is just this quirky girl. You understand from this book even better that she is someone who she truly doesn't know where her mother is. She was lost during a hurricane, and so she calls her mom her upstream mother, and she was found by a gentleman who decided to take her in, and so he is called the Colonel, I believe it was. Yeah, Colonel and Miss Lana, or Lana, and they took her in, and they have raised her as her own. But then during this actual book, you learn just how deeply their love, or just how deep their love for each other goes. It is so good. It's cute. It's funny, just as always. Like Sheila Turnage cannot go wrong. She is so good. I cannot wait to get the other 2 of this series, because it is just a remarkable series. Okay, and then the very last 2 books that I read for the month of May. The first one was just random. I don't really know why I chose it. It was a library book, and I just loved the cover. But then once I started digging into it and saw all the illustrations, I knew that I really wanted to read this book because it was right up my alley. It is, of course, middle grade. I read a lot of middle grade whenever we were doing the readathon because it is my comfort era. So I read WondLa, and this book was a very, very good book. It was very unique. It is written obviously for like 12-year-olds, around that age, and so you are following a 12-year-old who at the very beginning you quickly start realizing that she is not living where you would think that a 12-year-old human should be living, but she is actually being taken care of and raised by a robot, and she is stuck in this like sanctuary kind of place, but she doesn't know anything about it. She basically just lives within these certain walls, and that's all she's ever known. Well, then something has come and has attacked this place and has completely obliterated it. So she had to run away and had to try to survive. And that's when she started learning that there is way more out there in this world than she thought possible. So it is her adventure on trying to, one, understand where she came from and who she is, but then also trying to understand this place that she is at and trying to understand where she and her kind fit into this story. She ends up making friends with unlikely sources, and some are very humorous, some are very straightforward, but the connections that end up being made are so beautiful that I absolutely was enamored with these connections and the embraces and the different levels of friendship, but then also a family that was being built, because this was very much a story that is built and designed for found family. And then the very last book that I read for May was actually for my Patreons. We're slowly going through Skyward through the next couple of months. These are our book club picks, and so if you guys are not a part of the Patreon, shameless little plug, go ahead and become involved at any tier. Phoenix! At any tier, you can become a part of the book club. And then also what we do is, once we vote for the book club book of the month, then whatever book comes in second, we do a buddy read for, which means that you can just read along with us. We have a little bit of discussion, but you don't have to, and there's not going to be any specific material or videos or anything like that that are dedicated to this. So anyways, Skyward was the first book of our Patreon pick that we read, and I really, really liked this. I, of course, am a Brandon Sanderson fan. I go hardcore for some Brando Sando. I love him so much, and I think that this book is wildly underrated for those who love, fun, quirky fantasy books, but you might not like sci-fi. This is still a great book. I am not someone who cares for sci-fi that much. I am trying to get out of that, and I'm trying to dive more into sci-fi books, but this book pushed me there for a little bit, and then I realized, okay, this isn't like heavy sci-fi, like I could follow this. One of my members kept talking about how it really reminded her of Top Gun, and I was like, you are absolutely correct in this assessment of this book. But we're following a girl, not a guy, which is kind of great, but she is actually like an interesting dynamic, because she comes from the line of a man who is considered a traitor within this pilot industry, if you want to call it that. I'm not really sure what you would call it that. They are not on a normal planet. They are on a different planet, and they're trying to survive, but they have these things called the Krill that are living above their world, and they are aliens who are trying to attack them and trying to take over their planet and destroy their human race and all this sort of stuff. And so they are constantly having to go to battle for them. And so the battle is something that obviously is really being done by the pilots of the area, but this is not just in their small area, it is the entire world that is being taken over by this stuff. And so she ends up wanting to she wants to be a pilot, just like her dad was a pilot, but her dad was also considered the traitor, and so people did not want her a part of this because they figured that that's probably a genetic trait. So things had to be done to try to get her into this pilot school that she desperately, desperately wanted to be a part of, and that she was very, very, very well versed to be a part of. When she finally starts realizing that there's probably more to her father's tale than what she was told, she does start digging in, and we start learning that there is a bigger picture than any of us thought possible. She starts meeting people from all different areas of this world, and they start building friendships, they start making enemies, they start learning how to fly, they start learning how to battle, they start learning how to, you know, they're growing in themselves. I have to say that whenever I first started this book, I did definitely rate it like a 4.5, because I could not stand the main character's constant desire to talk about herself, if that makes sense. It's silly, it's super silly, and I understand it. And looking back now, I understand that that was great, because then you actually start seeing her switching, and where she's not really so consumed with herself and making sure that she is always right and understood and accepted and all that stuff, but instead she moves on and starts paying attention to her crew members, and that becomes more of what her focus is. So that was great. But then my favorite two things about this book is that there is this little creature whose name is a doomslug, and she is amazing. I love her, and I cannot wait to see how she continues to grow in the next couple books. But then also there is a actual airplane that is named Mbot, and he is so sassy and just, he's so quirky. I loved him so much. I loved him so much. I loved him so much. And I cannot wait to see, like, what is he going to be later on down the road? Is he going to continue to be something? Because he, for me, I'm like, Brandon, please let him survive all 4 books, because you could almost get rid of the main character and I'd be fine with that, but don't get rid of my Mbot, because he is amazing and he is so funny and he loves mushrooms. So I'm like, yeah, dude, we absolutely get that in common. But he is just so funny, and so I absolutely love that this book has a lot of hard-hitting issues, and it's also, you know, pushing the boundaries of just sci-fi or fantasy. It's like a lot of overlapping things. You have, you know, a little bit of romance that's thrown in, but not like the main theme of it isn't romance. But I like that there's also humor to help break all this stuff up. It is just so good. Oh, it's so good. So go read it. 5 mushrooms for me now. After I have sat and been able to really think it through, it is 5 mushrooms. You will absolutely love to read this, and if you want, we are currently reading Starsight for Patreon this month of June, so you can jump on in with us. They're pretty fast reads, and you can find all of the audiobooks on Audible, so jump in with us. Well, thank you guys so much for spending time with me. I am so ready to be done with this video. It has taken me all day, and my medicated little mind is just kind of done. So I will just see you guys in the next video. I do ask that if you have not already, that you will please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel, and it helps me to promote and to produce the things that I absolutely love producing, which is videos all about books, boat living, baking, all that jazz, and it allows me to be able to stay home with my precious, precious little baby girl. So I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.